Okay, looks like everything is going good. Good. Okay, cool. All right. We'll wait just a little bit for folks to get in. Hello to everyone that's already in the waiting room. Um, yeah, let's see here. Let me just check a couple other things real quick. Soon I will get this. So, let's see here. I don't know if any of you caught it or not, but the there it goes. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Hello. Hopefully you can hear me now. Small technical difficulty there, it seems. Um, let's see. Just testing a few things. Sorry about that. That seems to be working just fine. Okay. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me on this Sunday. A few of you hanging out right now, it looks like. Hopefully, everyone can hear me okay and that this is going through. Everything looks to be okay on my end now. Um, but yeah, the idea for today is just another kind of casual space chat, the Sunday service, if you will, for us space enthusiasts. Darren, hello. Oh, thank you so much. This is an awesome shirt that my fiance got for me. And for you Star Trek nerds out there, it's got all the captains from the five older shows. Yeah, I really like this shirt. Um, thanks for being here, Darren. Good to see you, man. Man, I think the last time I actually saw you was the last when we went to MCC to like randomly interview students about space stuff. Thanks for helping me out with that back then. Man, that was forever ago. Jeez, that was probably man, maybe 12 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, not didn't mean to call you out. Um, so yeah, we've had a lot of really crazy stuff happen this week. I was on a couple days ago talking about just everything that's been going on. I talked a lot about what's going on in my personal life, but there's been a lot going on in the space industry, and it's just been pretty crazy to me. Um, of course, we had the successful flight four of the Starship, the demo test flight of Starship, and probably some of the best views that we've seen to date. And a lot of that is definitely in part to Jamie Higginbotham. You can follow her on Twitter at Photon Empress. And holy cow, they just continue to amaze me and blows my mind of how we're able to get all these live views thanks to Starlink of reentry. It's so cool, so cool. Um, of course, we had the Boeing Starliner had hit its issues, but it seems like since they've docked with the International Space Station, they've actually been able to fix quite a few problems, or at least get things under control, so to speak. I don't know if the leaks are still as bad as they were, and they weren't even that bad. I mean, it wasn't bad enough that they had to cancel and abort the mission. They just had to proceed carefully. So. Um, but despite that, the leaks that they were having, they've been able to patch at least a few of them. I don't know 100% of what the details are, but things are going well, and hopefully the entire mission will be able to be complete. They have about 11, 12 days left before they're supposed to undock, I believe. Um, might be off on a few days. They're supposed to be there for 14 days, 2 weeks total. Um, and yeah, hopefully everything goes well. I was able to catch the Tomorrow Live show, and that was a good show. It was cool to see so many of the Tomorrow folks and the NASA spaceflight folks all in the same place. Um, but something cool that we talked about was, what is the backup plan if things go, really badly? Not really badly, but like if they determine that, CST 100 can't return home safely, or just if there is any sort of issues, it does make me wonder if there is like, any sort of contingency plan for like an emergency docking of another Dragon capsule, or is there room already on some of the currently docked vehicles to be able to do an emergency landing, or even just make uh, the two of them from the Boeing test flight, make them a member of one of the expedition crews. I'm not sure, but there's a couple things that could be done from that. Something else, of course, was the Chonga 6. That's so cool, and it seems like they've made a lot of improvements, like minor improvements over the Chonga 5. They have another relay satellite. It's called QCOW dash 2 because they had a first one for the Chonga 5 lander several years ago, back in 2019, and that's how they were able to return data from the far side of the moon then. And now it seems like they have been able to boost the capacity of that relay satellite and return even more. Something I don't know though is whether or not um, the first one, QCOW number one, is still operational. It's still in orbit around the moon, I believe, but I don't know if it still works. That would have been interesting, and probably if they are identical, that might have been why there was a boosted signal because they were working in tandem. But I honestly don't know. Information out of China has been not what it used to be, although it never was great to begin with, from my perspective. But yeah. Let's see. Couple people here. Um, Something that I did want to kind of talk about was a bit of my plan. Um, I am able to. So I have OBS, which is a much better streaming software, and my goal is to go through a streaming software so that I can pull up pictures and video and articles, and actually show you guys the things that I'm trying to talk about instead of doing this. But um, I, at the same time, I still do want to have just like an easy, casual chat like this, and get your opinions and get people talking about stuff, and maybe come up with some collaborative projects that people can work on together. Um, Something that just even small things. I think it would be really cool to come up with just like data packets, for example, for future launches. Like there's all sorts of things that they've done in the past. NASA's even done it in the past where you could beam messages or your photo carried along with Curiosity and Ingenuity rovers. So stuff like that would be really cool to kind of partner up with, but that's very far in the future. Um, in any case, how are you guys doing? You guys, hopefully this is a okay time for this. I kind of had to move things around. I initially wanted to do this a little earlier, but I moved things around just because of the schedule of what's been going on today. And yeah, give you a chance to respond here for anyone who's still in there. I do have a plan that I want to not necessarily continue with this channel. A couple years ago, back in 2018, 2019, I actually created a new channel and was in the process of kind of rebranding to, instead of it being called Epic Future Space, just SpaceMike. And I might be able to still do that with this channel. I mean, you can rebrand whenever, but um, locking in like URLs and things like that are sometimes difficult once you've made a permanent change. I could be completely wrong about that, but um, they might have changed things since then. But the last time that I checked, like they tried to lock that in. So I do have another channel that is real easy, youtube.com/SpaceMike. And my goal is to kind of move everything over to there if I can't rebrand everything here to just Space Mike. And that's kind of one of those, YouTube algorithm sort of details. Um, so I'm still not 100% sure, but in the meantime, if you guys are willing, if you can go over to the youtube.com/slash space mike and subscribe to that channel, I'm going to start putting out things there. And what I have figured out that I can do, sorry, I went off on a, bit of a, random thought there, but what I can do is, even when I tried to do an experiment on doing a test stream with OBS to have the sort of thing that I was talking about of being able to show pictures and video and just share my screen so we can even just go over articles together and things like that. It with the setup that I have with the current laptop that I have and internet that I'm using, which is essentially just a 5G box, um, it's not working well. It's gonna be terrible. But I can record it without having to stream it, and it's great quality. So I'm just gonna start recording a couple of those things and put them out like regular videos. It's not gonna be the greatest quality, but it's something, and we can start going over things all quite a bit more in detail and kind of get caught up to speed of what's been happening in space over the past 5 years. I mean, even just what's been happening so far this year. We're not quite halfway through the year yet, and so much has already happened. And even what's in store for the rest of the year is a little overwhelming, to say the least. Let me catch up on. This is probably a good time for both EU and NA. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that, Bernie. Yeah, no problem, Randolph. Yeah, no problem for making this later in the day. Theron, let's see. EFS can be more of a community or organization, and SpaceMike can be your personal brand. Maybe one is behind the scenes and the other is more focused on news tech history. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean, just because I do that doesn't mean that I have to completely abandon this. So there could be other uses and just kind of do things a little bit differently on both channels. Um, and if you are keen to some of my ideas about bringing back some of the old community type of things that we used to do and participate in on YouTube, like 12, 14 years ago, then this could be the home for that. Like, I would love to see response videos for when we have real videos to respond to. And I would love to see introduction videos and collaborative videos and things like that. And I really would love to put together like community driven stuff. And eventually we can have contests for different types of things. Like, honestly, I would love to hold contests for art, for music, and um, even just like presentations, articles. Like, we might even have like an unofficial forum for people to do like white papers, essentially. Maybe not that hardcore of, but more like armchair scientist, armchair engineering. This might have already been discussed on a more official forum, but here's my presentation and my evidence and what I've done so far. What does the community think of this? And maybe get to the point where we actually have a real white paper to submit to NASA. And who knows? You never know. Might lead to some sort of grant. I've seen lots of college students. I've met lots of college students at space conferences before who just kind of had a good idea for something. They didn't really know what to do with it and came up with a presentation and were able to get a grant that then led to either them creating a company surrounded around a new patent that they filed, or working for a larger, more established company that wanted to pursue their idea. And it was able, like, I don't remember the exact legalities of it, but it was able to work in tandem so that the company that they've now worked for could somehow take advantage of their grant as well. I've seen that happen just from people having good ideas, putting it into a digestible format and putting it out there. And maybe that's a little bit too highbrow, but we can have stuff like that we can like I don't know. I hope that this is coming across and making some sort of sense, but I hope that we can have that sort of community. Weasel, good to see you, Weasel. Nice to see you here, man. I would not discard the history on this channel. YouTube and Google love stuff that's around for a long time. That's true. Web store for 15 years, and Google ranks me constantly above a newer store, 2 years, who even pays ads and stuff. Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of another reason why I, am still wanting to utilize and take advantage of this channel instead of just doing everything from scratch from the SpaceMike channel, which to me is still new. It's technically existed for 5 years. I just haven't utilized it yet. Um, yeah. So, excuse me. And there is a lot of other things that I wanted to talk about too, aside from space. And maybe the Space Mike channel is the place for that, to talk about things like music and video games that aren't space related. um, I don't know if anyone is familiar with Paradox Interactive. One of my favorite games is Crusader Kings. Crusader Kings 3 is a load of fun, but it has nothing to do with space. It's a medieval sim, so nothing to do with space. And a lot of y'all might not be interested in that sort of thing at all. But that's another one of those things that I just want to put out there. Like, hey, here's something that I enjoy. Here's something that I have fun with, and it's kind of funny when I originally started my channel over a decade ago. That was my original point, was to be one of those guys that talked about whatever they wanted. Um, so maybe that's where to go with that. But as far as space stuff, definitely need to do that. And there's so much to cover, and I definitely want to have something that's consistent where we can talk about everything that's going on and categorize it in somewhat general ways, but are still very complex subtopics. Like, for example, just suborbital stuff, just suborbital tourism and suborbital rockets and small things that can do atmospheric stuff, and small companies, aerospace companies that are starting off with something small like a suborbital rocket, but have plans for something a lot more. That's something that's orbital capable and something a lot more complex, but starting off with that, I want to have a whole suborbital section. Sometimes there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about. That might only have something new once a month. But then again, just talking about the basics of it and the concepts of it and how it ties into even just um, like hobby rocketry and things like that, I feel like would be a fun thing for a little bit. Talking about all the orbital stuff and its subcategories. You have the whole satellite market. I am really interested in satellite resurfacing and a lot of the satellite rendezvous stuff that has been going on over recent years. So that's definitely something I want to talk about and like keep updating on and speculate on, because that's like, if I was in one of these guys' positions, if I was a billionaire, I would be trying to start up a space salvage business. There are so many satellites and spent rocket upward stages that are still in orbit, that are still in like decent condition. And I don't mean like for the satellites that they're operational per se, but the components on them are still good. Like there's I mean, this might sound kind of weird, but like I would love to set up a space station somewhere and go and collect as much space junk as possible, and either safely deorbit it if it's not anything usable, or if it is something usable, salvage it and harvest it. And anything that, even if it is salvageable, if it's historic, create some sort of like orbital museum, or at least have those pieces in some sort of storage that could either be brought to the International Space Station or brought to a commercial space station in the future, like if something like Orbital Reef ever gets constructed. Um, it'd be so cool to have, some of the oldest satellites that are still on orbit in that sort of museum. And if for the super rich who go on, a multi-million-dollar mission or get selected for, say, something like Jared Isaacman's Polaris missions or something like that, that they could go and physically see with their own eyes, like one of the old Telesats or one of the old explorers. I think that would be really cool. I wouldn't want to do a lot of that, just like a handful, but definitely some of it. And at some point, even when Hubble breaks down, I think it would be a shame for it to just be deorbited. And I feel like it'd be a lot cooler to bring it over to some commercial space station, even if you just like moor it somehow or berth it somehow, even just grabbing onto it with like an old a robotic arm that you were about to retire anyway, and just put it in a permanent display holding the Hubble Space Telescope, even though it doesn't work anymore. Like it's a lot of money. It'd be ridiculous, but if money wasn't an issue like that I'd be doing that hardcore. Um, so talking about things that are kind of in that vein, I am interested in. Even though satellites, for the most part, I think are boring, stuff like that are pursuing things like that, or even satellite resurfacing, I think that stuff is really interesting and could have a lot of potential. Of course, there's all my main focus is human space flight. So all of the flights to the International Space Station, all of these new private flights that are going to be going on. Polaris Dawn is happening really quickly. For private citizens, and they're going to do a spacewalk. Even though only two of them are going to be outside of the Dragon capsule, the way that it's opening up, they don't have an airlock, so they're going to depressurize the entire inside. So the other two, even though they're going to be hanging back inside the capsule, they're going to be in the same new EVA suits and exposed to the vacuum of space, and that's going to be freaking epic. Hopefully, there's no problems. Hopefully, everything goes safely. I'm confident that it will, even though this is the first time with these new suits, I believe. I don't think they've used these suits before. If they have, then I definitely missed it. But yeah, uh, um, what was I going to say? There's so much, Joe, just with even that range. I mean, I want to talk about Gaganyaan, the Indian space program. Their stuff is coming along, and they're going to have a full orbital test flight this year. Um, it might get pushed back. It might get pushed back into early next year, but they are making major progress on that. It's reality. It's not just some PowerPoint presentation somewhere anymore. They have real hardware, and they're going to have the flight with their budget Sophia AI robot, and then get into real flights. And I think it's going to be freaking awesome. And I really, really hope. I need to do a little bit more on this before I speak about it, but I need to do some more research on the docking components, because I think that they have adopted the international standard that everyone's trying to push, so that, say, in the case of emergencies, we could dock to each other's space stations. And the commercial space stations adopt these same sort of docking ports, whether it be a common berthing port or a true docking port, that we have some sort of commonality, some sort of universality. I don't think I said that word, whatever. No apples in space. Everyone's using USB, okay? No lightning cables. Everyone's using USB. Just in case. And I think that India is doing that. So that's a whole thing. I want to talk about geez, just Russia in and of itself. I want to talk about their new capsule, but that's all but came to a standstill because of the war and all that. So that's a whole thing in and of itself that I feel like I need to make a proper video about, is Russia and Ukraine and the side effects it's had on both of their space industries, because Ukraine had one too, and they pretty much don't anymore. And I don't know if they'll ever get it back on track. It's so depressing. So that's another thing. I need to figure out how to talk about that without depressing myself and depressing all of you guys as well. Here, let me catch up on a couple of comments here. It looks like a few more of you have jumped in. Yeah, exactly, Sarah. Cool idea. Do gameplay and stuff on SpaceMike, and maybe more of just all the space-centric stuff here on Epic Future Space. Although I don't know this before I went live. I do need to look into if YouTube still has the same restrictions on like URLs and stuff. And even if it does, it doesn't matter. Like URLs really don't matter that much. But I guess I'm OCD about that. Yes, Randolph. For those of you who don't know, I have reopened my Patreon. I was able to get that set back up. Patreon.com/SpaceMike. And it pretty much has all the same like goals and tiers as it had before. So there's a few things that I need to update. Right now, my biggest thing is either upgrading the internet that I have so that I can get back to a good Ethernet connection. I don't have like a traditional, sounds weird, but I don't have a traditional modem router right now. I'm using one of those 5G boxes that have been offered by some of the cell phone companies. And it actually works really well. I've been really surprised. Um, it's even worked on like camping trips and stuff like that. So, um, not everywhere, but just in a handful of places where it was still within like that cellular network. Um, but yeah, I need to get a good Ethernet so I can do proper streams. But in the meantime, I can record what I would have streamed, what I would consider a proper stream. I can record that and release that as videos whenever. Um, in fact, I want to go through a lot of news articles and stuff. Just doing like on spacenews.com, just doing like their first up segment where it's just like a quick blurb. Here's the quick news that you can digest in 5 to 7 minutes. That's always something that I wanted to do, and for some reason never got around to on this channel was just do a quick, first up, talk about it, and kind of have that as a plan of if for especially the bigger, newsworthy items of we're going to talk about this particular thing in more detail on another video later video. So that's always something I've wanted to do, kind of as like a morning coffee roundup. And my dream is to get to the point to have that be an everyday thing. I don't know if people would get sick of that, but morning coffee, not as a stream, but just as a recorded video that anyone can watch on their own, at their own convenience. Yeah, patreon.com/SpaceMike. If you can support, I would greatly appreciate it. If you can't, you can still sign up as a free member. And if enough people go there, we can have a live chat room all the time there. And I'm also in the process of setting up a new Discord. I actually lost access to my old Discord account. So I've created a new Discord account, and I'm in the process of setting up a new Discord for our community so that we can chat and have different topics, different chat rooms, different things going on so that um, uh, we can keep evolving. And I would, whenever I do start having more produced videos and things, I would really, really like your guys' help on like just looking over scripts, for example. And did I miss anything, or do you see any blatant errors? Because I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, and I've been out of the game for a while, so I'm rusty. Like I still am pretty confident. I've been keeping up with the news, but there's still. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. There's still some things I'm mixing up right now. So expect that for a little bit. Oh man, let's see. Yeah, find an niche of something that's not being covered well enough right now, and bring your passion to it. Yeah, I mean, uh, I don't see a whole lot of people talking about India. I don't see a whole lot of people talking about like really doing a deep dive into the consequences of the war on the space industry. There have been some people talking a little bit about Russia, but I don't think anyone's really done a deep dive into Ukraine. They had a company called Yuzhmash, which has changed very recently. I don't remember exactly what it's called now. It was in Dnipropetrovsk, which is Dnipro, that's near where a lot of the fighting has been, and the factory where they made their rockets, the Cyclone rockets, the Zenit rockets, and another one that was kind of like an IRBM that could be. That factory was bombed, and they pretty much devoted all of their time to making their tractors and their buses. You guys remember at the beginning of the war when those farm tractors were tipping over the Russian tanks? Those were built by Yushmash, a Ukrainian space company, and I just find that freaking hilarious. And if you don't believe me, go check it up for yourself. But the Yushmash tractor or farm tractor, look that up, and you'll find it. That's mind blowing to me. So since that's what's yeah. Anyway, that deserves its own thing. So I need to definitely do that. There's lots of folks talking about SpaceX, and I still will talk about SpaceX as well, but I don't feel so much the need to like go into a deep dive about every single component and development of Starship. I will talk about updates and things like that, and I definitely want to talk about the the possibilities. What can we use this for? That's always been my focus, is the future. That's why this channel was called Epic Future Space. What can we use this for? What could we do with this? And what sort of synergies and partnerships could come about because of it? Yeah. Any thoughts on NASA choosing not to allow SpaceX to do servicing mission to Hubble? Did they choose? I know that they were talking about it, but I didn't know if NASA had made like a final decision on it or not. Um, what I do know, and what I'm sure NASA would have had a problem with, is that Jared Isaacson, they're trying to do it on one of the Polaris missions. And I think NASA was like, there's no way that you're sending private citizens to go service the Hubble. But then there was other talk too about the Dragon capsule itself and how even just its rendezvous operations might damage it. I think that that could be mitigated. I think that there's definitely a safe way that they can approach it with a Dragon capsule. They might have to do it extremely slowly, so they're not putting out a lot of gas from their attitude control thrusters. Yes, I believe that that's what they're worried about so much, is the gas from the attitude control thrusters gumming up some of the exposed sections of Hubble, or even the lens itself. Although they can close it before they do that. Um, Damn, they did make that final decision. Okay, okay. I still think it's a good idea, just maybe not with a Polaris mission with private citizens. If you have NASA astronauts, and that's like an actual like NASA mission that just so happens to use the Dragon capsule to do that, then cool. But um, I could see why they would have a big problem with having private citizens do that, because that's the whole point of Polaris, is they're all supposed to just be private citizens. Um, anyway, let's see here. Are you starting to see any impact from AI in space tech yet, or what applications can you imagine in the near future? I haven't really seen a whole lot other than what like the 3D printing guys are doing, and that some of the um, gosh, how do I explain this? How do I word this right? And I don't fully understand it myself because it's all linear algebra. But basically, they've been able to come up with better ways of utilizing 3D printing, especially for like the laser sintering. And some people argue that that's not even 3D printing, but I think it is. If you're doing it in the same method, even though it might be old tech, just kind of upgraded and used in a different way, I still think of that as 3D printing. But they've used a lot of AI to kind of help and just examine things and plug things in and say, hey, is there a better way that we can be doing this? I know a lot of like the components, like some of the turboprop components that Firefly. I don't know how much AI that they used, but they did have a lot of simulations that helped them come up with uh, like an all-in-one part that they could have and make it a lot easier on their production to have fewer pieces instead of more pieces. Alien Perspective. What is up, my dude? Renee, welcome. Oh, interesting. Your wife is an ophthalmic tech. I've been an ophthalmic tech before. I was in the optometry industry for like 5 years. I eventually became an optician and not the doctor, the guy who sells the glasses later. But that is awesome. I hope that she enjoys her office where she works. J. Christina has morning tea. Any thoughts on Stoke Space and Impulse Space? Yeah. So Impulse Space, that's Tom Mueller's company, right? Here, let me do a quick refresher because I get like four of these guys confused. Yeah, Impulse Space is Tom Mueller's company. Um, I haven't seen like a ton, I have seen like actually, I believe it was Ellie in Space who did a really good interview and got a tour of their facility, and didn't look like a whole lot. Still on the small scale, but way better than anything I could have access to. And Tom Euler, we have to remember, is the guy who is, the main engineer of the Merlin rockets, Merlin engines, excuse me. And he knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. And just having his name attached to it gives me a lot of confidence. I don't know when they're going to have a whole lot of stuff going on. I don't know when they're going to be fully operational or start doing test flights, but just having him involved gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to do some cool stuff. And as for Stoke Space, um, they're especially one of the guys that I'm talking about that have utilized AI and 3D printing to, you know, streamline their process. And I haven't followed everything that they've done, but just the handful of things that I have seen that they've put out that showed um like test firings and stuff worked great. Worked great. Seems like that they are on a great idea and really good. Um, they're on a good path, and I think that utilizing those technologies is just going to continue doing stuff. I even did a thing for fun, so just playing around with Chat GPT when it first came out. I asked it to write a like a movie script for me where Werner von Braun and Sergei Korolev were secretly in contact with each other during the entire moon race back in the 60s. Well, at least before late 50s, early 60s, before Korolev died. Korolev being the designer of the Soyuz rocket and basically you know, let's call him the godfather of the Soviet space program. Uh, Before, not a whole lot of people know this, but him and Werner von Braun, as well as Werner von Braun's mentor, Hermann Oberth, were all in contact with each other before the war. Matter of fact, they were in contact with each other like shortly after World War I, and were all part of rocketry clubs. In fact, they were also in contact with Robert Goddard here in America and the American Rocketry Society back then. They were all in contact with each other and used to write letters back and forth with each other and had their letters like featured, like a letter to the author featured in each other's magazines. Die Rocket is probably the most famous one from back in that days. And they all knew each other, at least were acquainted through letters with each other. And they may not have ever met in person, but they were all acquainted with each other and familiar with each other's ideas and theories. And not a whole lot of people know that. And so I've heard stories, and nothing, of course, can be proved by it, but I've heard stories that um, Werner von Braun had the equivalent of like a red phone in his office that was a direct line to Sergei Korolev, or at least his office, and that they would have like, shit talking conversations with each other. My shit's gonna be better. No, mine's gonna be better. Um, and so I asked ChatGPT to make me a script of, something like that to turn it into like a fun movie or like a fun skit, of just them arguing back and forth on the phone. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of something else that I want to do. That might be weird, and I don't know if there is really a market for it, but wouldn't it be funny to kind of see some like well done space history reenactments of kind of like the more lighter side, the more human side that never really got presented so much? Um, I don't know if there's a thing for it, and it would take a lot of work to get there, but that's another one of those things that I would want to do. Like, I would totally want to make this scene a reality, just as like a fun, skit for people to watch and enjoy. But it started going on, and like more and more people started joining their call. Like ChatGPT went off the rails. It's 19 like 61, and suddenly people are joining in via conference call. Herman Oberst joins in. Jack Parsons joins in. The ghost of Robert Goddard joins in. Like all these guys join in and start having arguments. All of Korolev's like rivals in the Soviet Union join in and start having arguments about what's the better fuel type and what's the better material to use. And it eventually got to like this conclusion that is not something that we use at all. And it's theoretical, but it's not something that is talked about. And just looking at it, I'm like, huh, like that could actually maybe work. I don't know if that would be cheaper than what SpaceX is doing or more expensive, but it could work. And the fuel is more readily available, and we can get it in space too. So, anyway, it's just one of those things. So I think that AI, when asked seriously and not just my dumb little, write a funny script of an argument between the godfathers of spaceflight, um, I think that when asked seriously, I think that it can eventually help us to come up with better solutions and better ways of doing things, so that it's cheaper, more energetic, and fast to produce. So yeah, Weasel. Yes. Oh, you wrote me on the old Discord. Yeah, I am sorry. I have lost access to that. I cannot get it back. I had been using that Discord for years and never realized that it was tied to an old Tomorrow email account that I no longer had access to. So I couldn't re-verify and get back in. And of course, I didn't have any other backups set up on it. So that's my own dumb fault, but it's okay. Can just make a new one and start from scratch. It's all good. Um, let's see. Alien Perspective. Still want to do a music project with you. Let's go after Tim Dodd. Now, Alien Perspective, you've heard this. I'm down. I'm down. But maybe some others haven't. I do have some music stuff too. It's not very good, but I have some. Uh, this most of it's like stuff that I put out over like 10 years ago. But some of it was from a few years ago. Let me see if I can put this in chat. I don't know if it'll let me link this. But yeah, there's my SoundCloud. It's called Orbital Transit. And like the three most recent songs, especially one called Ryugu at Rest, I are my most recent, and I think the better ones, best ones so far. And there's another one too called High on Jazz. That's this like dueling piano thing that I was just like overlapping two pianos with, and that one's my favorite. It might be a little too much for people, but it like starts off really funky, and then it goes like a hard electronica with very loud bass in it. So, um, but yeah, there's that. If you guys wanted to ever check out my music, so yeah, I'm down. We need to create a space band, and it would be fun to do that. How cool would it be if we like started up a music like rivalry, like a friendly rivalry with Tim Dodd's band, and then we eventually got to the point where we organized a tour with the Astronaut Band. I can't remember what the name of it's called, and I think that all they do is covers, but they might do some original songs and might not fit the style at all. But it is a band that plays at like some of the places around Kennedy Space Center, like the restaurants that all the astronauts go to, the bars that they all go to. Um, and it's a band made up just of astronauts. So how cool would it be to like do money wasn't an issue to do a tour, us, Tim Dodd's band, and the astronaut band. And maybe it's just a very quick tour around those three bars around Kennedy Space Center. Oh man. Yeah, that'd be fun. Sad that so many small launch companies are going to fail because only so much room in the market. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Randolph. I want all of them to succeed. I want all of them to succeed. I but it is sad, and a lot of my favorites have failed already. Xcore Aerospace went bankrupt and had to sell off all their assets and their stuff, and it's super depressing to me. Super depressing. Jeff Grayson is one of my favorite people in the space industry. He has given speeches at space conferences that are just so inspiring. He's so eloquent and really knows how to make a point and make you learn something and give you that pleasure of letting you come to the realization yourself. And Jeff Grayson's awesome. Like if Elon Musk was half as eloquent as Jeff Grayson, Elon would have no problems whatsoever. But now Jeff Grayson is working on warp drive, essentially. I don't know how well it's going, but he does have a group that is putting out a lot of um, kind of what I was talking about earlier, like theoretical papers and white papers and studies about, if not warp drive, then getting close to speed of light. We're faster than light drives, but there's a whole ton of stuff that's the getting up to light speed, getting close to light speed that are very possible, very real, very possible. And I feel like his group is the best one that kind of has all that information in one place. You want to know more about the Alcubierre drive and the updates on that, then I would go to his group. However, it seems like they don't really have much money, and they might just be working on it on the side as like a side project. So, but even if they did have money, all the stuff that they're talking about needs billions, if not trillions of dollars to make possible. Even if it's super cheap to operate, once it is running, it's a huge cost to get it to that point. I mean, just look at SpaceX. I mean, it's had a huge investment to get to the point of having reusable Falcon 9s, but now that it has them, I mean, 300, a little over 300 launches of the Falcon 9 rocket, and over 200 of them have landed and been able to be reused. That's just so mind blowing, and is why they've been able to launch so many Starlink missions, because it's not a huge cost for them. It really isn't. Will you be going to Starbase? Probably the next launch of Starship. I would love to go to Starbase, but it's currently not in the budget right now. Once I do have an ability to do that, then absolutely, absolutely. And if I ever, I mean, I might not want to take this route, but if I have extra funds when I go back to Arizona, I might just go a little bit further south and actually very far south, actually very much a large detour to go down to Boca Chica. Um, Not Boca Chica, Brownsville. What am I talking about? But yeah, it'd be cool. Ah, got your vast shares in Tesla voting for Elon's pay package. And see, here's where, so if we are going to, if you want to bring that up, I know Elon does invest a lot of his own personal money into SpaceX, but I don't know how much of it he still does. Like, I don't know how much of that, giant pay package is for him to reinvest into SpaceX and Tesla and other things. And how much of that is to kind of reimburse him for Twitter and his own finances, because he's gone bankrupt a couple of times. You know, I don't know where he's at, but he's keeping things going, and he's gotten to the point where even if he does go bankrupt again, it shouldn't disturb anything for SpaceX. I wish that he would hand over Tesla to someone like a Gwynne Shotwell, so that he isn't as bogged down with that. But I don't know. He can do whatever he wants with his money. I hope that he gets it, and regardless of whether or not it's his money, it does set a precedent for a lot of other companies, whether or not a local court can shoot down something like this. It's all very interesting to me. But yeah, I would love to see him do more stuff with SpaceX and other different ideas. Speaking, actually, are you guys familiar with Star Shield? So you all have heard of Starlink and know what that's all about. But did you know that the first batch of Star Shield satellites were launched not long ago? So, Starshield is a slightly upgraded Starlink satellite in a big old batch, just like the Starlinks are launched, but they are specifically for the American government and have national defense payloads. And some of the Starlinks already have been serving this purpose because it's not a whole lot. Most of it is software and like a little extra level of encryption. But there are some instruments that are on the Starshield version that aren't on the already existing Starlink satellites that are being used by, um, like, say, the National Reconnaissance Office or the Pentagon. Um, but yeah, they. I think it's kind of really interesting that first batch was launched at. I don't know, just a cool upgrade, and they do have some cool ideas with it, and I don't know. It makes me think about going back to the space salvaging business of how I could recover some of the stuff that's up there and reuse it and put some new parts and some modularity to it so that it could dock or berth with other pieces that we find and be like a big unit. So anyway, what was I going to say here? Let's see. I remember when Tomorrow used to call SLS the Senate launch system, and SLS sucked. Yep, still does, but hey, at least the first launch of it seemed to go okay. Yeah, there was still issues with the Orion capsule, but um, I mean, I guess there was a few issues with the rocket itself, but um, it did fly. It did get to the giant parabolic arc that it wanted to do. So I'm encouraged, and I hope that the next flights go well. Most of the pieces are kind of in the same Mishad assembly center. All of the upper stages are already delivered for Artemis 2 and Artemis 3, and they're starting work on the next upper stage, the real upper stage for SLS. And for a program that's supposed to have been a recycle program using leftover hardware, sure has been a bitch and a half, but they've got all the pieces, so it's time to start putting it all together and start going. I still don't necessarily agree with having crew on this next flight, especially for the type of flight that they wanna do with it. But yeah, we have it. See what comes about from the future. I hope that it gets to the point where we can phase out SLS entirely with Starship, or even just the booster of Starship. Like, I don't know internally what other SpaceX designs they have. I know that they do have that version of the ship of Starship where the front nose cone opens up to release satellites and payloads and things like that. But it makes me wonder if there has been any sort of development for an expendable upper stage. I know they don't want to do expendable; they want to keep with reusability, which they should. That's great, but it just makes me wonder if there is any sort of expendable upper stages that they're looking at for the booster rocket for the first stage, and then having like a more uh, traditional payload fairing and a different type of payload because without having to worry about the reusability of the ship, the payload to orbit, and even like the amount of energy that you could do for a translunar injection suddenly becomes a lot higher. I mean, in just a couple of years, um, maybe next year, but probably not until 27, they're going to be launching the first couple pieces of the gateway lunar gateway station. Um, the first piece, the PPE, the power and propulsion element, that one's pretty much ready, is from what it sounds like. They're integrating the xenon thrusters to it and integrating the overwrap composite tanks that actually hold the xenon gas. Um, and otherwise, the rest of the vehicle is pretty much ready. But something that's interesting that has changed is the next module after that. It's called the Halo module, which is essentially a slightly bigger, slightly fatter Cygnus cargo vehicle with a bunch of docking ports on it, um, or berthing ports. And those were initially going to launch separately, but they decided to launch them together, like dock them on the ground essentially, and launch them together in one mission. And they're doing that on a Falcon Heavy rocket. But the Falcon Heavy rocket that they're using is going to be entirely expendable. So both the side boosters and the core first stage are not going to be landing back on Earth. They're going to be expendable. And I'm sure they'll have a trajectory where they land harmlessly over the ocean and don't hurt nobody. But um I just lost my train of thought. But that mission with those first pieces, the power and propulsion element and the Halo logistics module, that's like the first actual uh, pressurized compartment that astronauts would actually be inside of. The other piece is essentially the service module of this station slash spaceship. A lot of people are thinking of it as a stationary spaceship that's going to be in orbit around excuse me, a stationary space station like the International Space Station. But it's really a spaceship that's going to change its orbit all of the time depending on the mission. It's going to support a lot of missions on the surface of the moon, and eventually it's either going to be like the uh, harbor docking facility construction site of a Mars transfer vehicle, or it's going to be the Mars transfer vehicle itself. So that's why I'm a supporter of Lunar Gateway. A lot of people hate it, and I understand why you hate it, but that's why I like it, because that's what I want. I want the bigger spaceships. I want the Nautilus X to be real, or at least a version of it. So yeah, summer. Okay, Randolph, you brought that up. Some are dual, Starlink and Starshield. Yeah, they are. Eamon, great to have you here, buddy. Good to see you. Yeah, you're right. Starshield will also help to fund Starship because they know that they're charging the government some good money for those um, Pentagon exclusive Starlink satellites with upgrades. It's not just your standard one. L5 resident, hello, welcome. Cislunar Industries wants to grind up defunct satellites on orbit and use the aluminum for structural materials or propellant. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like all this, the stuff that is just junk, that is just scrap metal, do that. And there's some really cool tests that they've been doing to see how viable it would actually be. I mean, they just did essentially a laser sintering test at the International Space Station really recently. It might have been a few weeks ago, or it might have been a little over a month and a half ago. I can't remember, but they did it and it worked. And we already know that we can essentially, melt down a few things or do, your very basic sort of salvage. But we could get to a point where we have like a robotic facility on orbit that is melting down like a crucible and then 3D printing from that material that it has made. And of course, there need to be a lot of sorting so we don't get things mixed up and keep keep the aluminum separate from the things that are steel and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm all about that. I love those ideas. I would be very interested in being one of the guys, even if it's just controlling a robotic spacecraft that rendezvous with all the upper stages. And I would be very curious to know how many of those upper stages are still usable, like in their current form. Yeah, sure, we might need to replace its avionics and gyroscopes and things like that. But I really, really, really wonder how many of them could simply be refueled and used again. And some of them just automatically, even if they are in pristine condition, can't be used that way because of the type of fuel that they used. And it's just extremely hard. No one's figured out how to do an on-orbit fuel transfer of that type yet. Um, but for all the some of the cryogenic ones, it seems like United Launch Alliance has figured out, you know, even if, I mean, theoretically figured it out. They haven't launched any of the aces or any of that stuff, but they have an idea, and they did do a simple version of it. And I don't know if they've, back when it was orbital ATK, if they figured it out themselves or if there was any sort of information sharing going on, um, like referencing ULA's patents or anything like that. But essentially proved that that was possible with their MRV, the satellite resurfacing vehicle. And some of these geostationary satellites, they've been able to add another 5, 10, sometimes 15 years for some of the ones that they've resurfaced already. So um, it really makes me wonder, if this is possible, how many of those upper stages are usable? And if they are usable, god damn it, they're already in orbit. Like, how many of those could be used for lunar missions? How many of them could be strapped together and used together as a new vehicle? Jeez. Like, how many Agena upper stages are still up there? And how many of them could I strap together and essentially do like a Saturn 1C, where they had a Jupiter rocket in the middle, surrounded by a whole bunch of Redstone rockets, and then replace the engines with a different engine mount? But it was the tankage. You know, is essentially that's what the first Saturn rocket was leftover parts from the Redstone rockets and the Jupiter rockets. You know, could we do something like that on orbit with leftover Agenas? That would be super cool. Leftover Agenas, and in the core, in the middle, is like a Delta K upper stage from the Titan II rockets, or not Titan II, Delta II. Excuse me. That would be crazy. That would be so crazy, and that thing would have like a lot of capability. You could be doing cislunar missions back and forth between lunar orbit and Earth orbit all the time, especially if you had a way to keep refueling it time after time. Yes, you would have to send that fuel up to orbit unless you had a way of making it on orbit. That's where all the hydrogen stuff gets exciting. Um, and all like the lunar ice mining gets exciting. But if you can't, then it still would cost money to send that fuel up. But I'm all about those ideas. I think those ideas are great. It's the type of things that I, do for fun in Kerbal Space Program. Miko One, hello. Is there a planetary exploration mission you are particularly looking forward to? I can't wait to see Dragonfly go to Titan. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Europa Clipper. That's going to be a really good one too. Um, gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Why can't I remember it? Let me go here real quick. Sorry to camera's in such a weird space. I have to freak you guys out with my hand reaching for you. I need to get a better webcam too. We're sending. It's the one that's doing the follow-up mission to the asteroid that we hit with the DART mission. It's the one that's doing a follow-up to that to see how much, if any, damage was done. It did change the orbit ever so slightly, but like we still don't know, 100% what the result of that was. The Hera probe. That's what it's called. I could not remember. Going to the Didymos asteroid. Still don't know how to say that right, but that one's really interesting because of what's going on there. And I wonder if anyone's going to try out doing the halo orbit tug thing, because you can get into a halo orbit and just with gravity, essentially do a gravity tractor beam and pull an asteroid into a different orbit. It's super cool. Like, it could be super slow, but we could do it with a small little satellite and bring something into orbit around the moon. all these near Earth asteroids, we could do something like that. It would take several orbits and adjusting the orbit slowly, slowly, slowly. It might take a decade to do it, but we can do that right now, and it wouldn't even take a Falcon 9 rocket to get that satellite into orbit. We could use we could do like a ride share Falcon 9 and put 4 or 5 of them into orbit, going after different asteroids. Um, it's crazy. It would take a long time, but it's definitely possible. So I think it would be really cool to do that with some of the ones like Apophis or oh gosh, what's the other one that has a ton of lithium on it? Start mining those guys, even if we crash the market. Even if Apophis does have more gold in it than we've mined in our entire human history, and we completely crash the market if we were ever to mine that and introduce it back on Earth. Good, good. Let everyone know that resources are plentiful. Your fiat money is just that, fiat. It's fake. Anyway, I better not get off on that. Yeah, Eamon, you're right. Yeah, tankers will not have a heat shield. Yeah, for the Starship tankers is I think what you're referring to. Yeah. Renee, compared to Dragon, the Starliner look cramped. Yeah. We'll make a better judgment when you have 4 astronauts. But what do you think about the long-term viability of Starliner? I want it to succeed. Yeah, so do I. I want it to succeed. ASUS just needs a contract. You won't fully develop it in-house until somebody else can pay them. You're absolutely right. And both of those comments are related. Boeing and United Launch Alliance won't do anything unless somebody pays them. And for Skyliner, NASA paid Boeing twice as much, close to triple as much as it paid SpaceX to do the same thing. And SpaceX is already into its extended missions now, and Starliner has yet to fulfill its first mission. If anyone knows, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 5 for their first contract. It might be 7, but I think it's 5 is what they're supposed to do. So they have a legal obligation to at least do those missions, whether it's 5 or 7. I don't remember. And they might have even gotten a contract for extended missions, but those ones I think could still be rescinded if NASA changed their mind. But even if NASA changed their mind on Starliner right now, I think it might be hard for them to get out of those 5 missions that they've contracted Boeing to do for actual crew rotation, just like what Dragon is doing now. As for its future and long-term viability, again, it all goes back to who's willing to pay them. And that might be Jeff Bezos. It seems to me like Blue Origin is just kind of like a tertiary partner to that idea. But yet at the same time, it feels like that's like all coming from Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know what is going on in the planning behind the scenes for that whole orbital reefs thing. But you got United Launch Alliance. You've got Sierra Space Systems. Excuse me. United Launch Alliance, Blue Origin, Sierra Space Systems, potentially SpaceX, and a whole bunch of other companies that are doing like the smaller components, like the Tucson company that does a lot of like life support systems. I believe that they're doing that. Randolph, 6 contracted. Is that what it is? Is it 6 contracted? Okay, so it was kind of there, somewhere between 5 and 7, 6 contracted. Okay, I could have just looked that up myself too, real quick, but thank you for letting me know. It seems amazing we once seriously debated which craft would get to capture the flag at the ISS, right? Right? Dragon got that for sure. Yeah, I've seen those rumors as well about Blue Origin possibly buying United Launch Alliance. They are looking for a buyer, which is worrisome. And I really hope that it's not Northrop Grumman. Anybody but Northrop Grumman. I don't have a problem with Northrop Grumman per se, but it just seems like ever since they acquired Orbital ATK, they've like been kind of stifling some of the new creativity, and let's just we're just going to do what we've already like been contractually obligated and signed up to do, but we're not looking to take on any new projects. We're just going to focus on our war weapons after these space projects are wrapped up. And that I can't say anything definitively, like I can't prove that. That's just the vibes that I'm getting from them, and from the old programs at Orbital that aren't looking at replacements or anything else. And it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. Northrop Grumman, with the huge inventory that they have, they could whip together so many cheap solid rocket Kerbal rockets that are orbital capable so quickly, so many variations. And somewhere around too the price range of getting a ride on a Falcon 9. Of course, there would be all the environmental stuff because it's depending on which type of solid rocket fuel. I mean, none of them are very, very good, but some are worse than others. Yeah, they have such a huge inventory. And I know we're all trying to go towards reusability and all that stuff, but man, I wish that they would put something together to reuse what they have. Blue would make the most sense because they're already using Blue Origin's engines. Thank God for Blue Origin saving their butts. Otherwise, they would never have been able to continue. After, I mean, maybe they would have gone with Aerojet Rocketdyne, but I don't know. I've been pleasantly surprised with how good the BE4s have turned out to be so far. And I really hope that everything goes well with their New Glenn, which also might launch this year. We might get the first test flight of New Glenn this year. And yeah, it's just them catching up to Falcon 9, but awesome. Awesome. Nobody else has anything close to a Falcon 9. You might have something that can get the amount of weight into orbit, but nothing is reusable. Nothing is cheap. Nothing is cheap to operate. Nothing is cheap to purchase as a customer trying to get a ride to space. So, yeah. I hope that they do. It would make the most sense. And I hope that they would be able to utilize, all the kind of legacy stuff that ULA has to offer, not just in terms of their employees, but just their records, their massive historical records. Because you remember, they have all the stuff from Lockheed and Boeing. So at least the old stuff, not new contracts since it was formed that aren't part of the either NASA's stuff or the national reconnaissance missions. But Northrop's going to buy Relativity Space. I thought I saw something about that. I wasn't sure if that was going to go through. Hi, Phil B, by the way. Welcome. Oh, man. They're banned from using surplus ICBM motors for commercial missions. That's why they're sitting on them. Yeah, but technically everyone's banned from using ICBMs at all. And yet they do it all the time. So, although ITAR and EAR is very strict. So I guess that's what it would take. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. That does explain it as to why they're just sitting on them. But there has to be a way to get things reclassified. And maybe it's just too big of a task to, have a team or even a singular employee going through those classifications and working with all the different offices that would be involved and all the different clearances involved to get something reclassified. Because they'd have to do it component by component. especially if they are offering different variants. Yeah. And maybe it's just as simple as giving it a new name, like Minotaur Taurus, and then, oh, this isn't the ICBM version, even though it's exactly the same. This is the space version. It's fine. Who knows? It has been really interesting, though, all these different mergers, and I kind of like it, and am kind of excited for some of the new iterations. Like seeing a lot of these old companies. Someone's trying to buy up Aerojet Rocketdyne right now too. I forgot who, but someone's trying to buy them up right now. And I kind of like that all the old space companies that SpaceX has undoubtedly beaten in the commercial space industry. I like that they are merging and being acquired by other space companies, and that we still might see some cool stuff from them. Even if United Launch Alliance, whether they are bought by Blue Origin or somebody else, whether or not they ever get to the point of having a reusable first stage, if they ever do get their Aces upper stage going, that's going to be huge. That could be a major moneymaker for them. Maybe not enough to compete with SpaceX still, but enough to still have a damn good thing going for themselves. I mean, shoot, even Northrop's got a good thing going for themselves just for the satellite resurfacing stuff. I don't know how many are in the pipeline, but there is going to be some. Gosh, what is the company? Sorry for all the wobble. This is going slow. Who's trying to buy Aerojet Rocketdyne? Sorry. Missed the days when Blue Origin surprised us with things like, hey, last week we launched and landed, and surprise, next week we're doing an abort test. It used to be so mysterious with the results. They did, yeah. I feel like there still is an air of mystery. It's just not as mysterious. We have photos now of their hardware of New Glenn, and obviously they've had rollouts, so kind of can't help people snapping pictures. But there is a lot more now, and a lot of that I think we have to thank United Launch Alliance for, because we had to see the data and the progress for BE4. Maybe not as in depth as United Launch Alliance did, but there had to be some level of transparency there, not just for United Launch Alliance, but for NASA and the general public and the Pentagon and anyone who is already a customer or who would be a future customer of their products. So I feel like that's why we've gotten access to a lot more of their information. Is this finished loading yet? No, it is not. Okay. There's a little Chinese rocket called the Gravity 1 that launches from a sea platform, and it's all solid rockets, and it looks so cute. It looks just like a Kerbal rocket, and it proves that Kerbal rockets do work. Apparently, it's super cheap, and their claim is that it's ready to fly 5 hours after production. 5 hours. So, if true, they got everyone beat. And that rocket currently is the most powerful all solid rocket setup in the world. More powerful than the Minotaur, even. There's an explicit law in place to only use ICBM solid rocket motors for government missions only, which would explain why they're the only ones who use the Minotaur rocket. That would explain that. I'm sure I saw that somewhere at some point while trying to study and understand all the ITAR stuff, but I'd forgotten. Thank you, L5 resident. It's very informative. Okay. Oh shit, they already bought Aerojet Rocketdyne, and it's L3 Harris. Oof. They did some stuff, but that's another like missile. Like they do a lot, but they have like a missile component. They're not like super huge space wise in terms of being hired by NASA for stuff, but definitely more of those defense contracts. Dang, that already went through. They purchased a year ago. They purchased Aero. They completed that a year ago. Dang, dang. And of course, Aerojet rocket. So yeah, I hope I see some space stuff that can be used commercially and used by NASA from L3 Aerojet Rocketdyne. It'd be kind of cool to see all of these old space companies eventually merge into like one company. They have to combine all of their forces just to compete with SpaceX. That would be amazing. Oh man. Yeah, solid rockets are my favorite. So simple, so fast off the pad. One of the really early was it Pioneer? I think it was one of the really early Pioneer had this upper stage that is so janky, so janky. It was essentially just a small ring with a bunch of the motors of hobby rockets, like the solid hobby rockets that you can go buy at a hobby store or even at Michael's craft stores. That I think it had like 12 of. It wasn't even like the biggest one. It was like a medium size little hobby rocket motor that they stuff into the bottom of the little plastic rockets. But it was on this flat ring. They were all in the same plane. It wasn't a stack of them. It was they were all in the same ring. And I believe it was 12. And all 12 of those little hobby rockets was enough to like change the trajectory of this Pioneer probe that I believe was doing. It was like real early in the late 50s, I think. Some of the first early missions to go to the moon. And I think it might have just been a flyby. I can't remember the details, but I like remember this stage and I'm just like, dude, I can build that. Like I have the resources to make that rocket stage. Like, holy cow. You're telling me like with enough stuff, and some people have proved it, like Joe Barnard, that you can make some really advanced little solid hobby rockets. And gosh darn it, we could make something for super cheap, like under $10,000 that at least gets suborbit. Holy crap! Like that blows my mind. And it would be hilarious if we could come up with a like super dirt cheap solid rocket that is just barely big enough to get a singular 1U CubeSat into orbit and like a small orbit, like under 150 kilometers. That would be awesome. And to bring that to like the Triple E rocket club because it's so small that it's considered a hobby rocket, but big enough that we could put a 1U CubeSat into orbit. That would be crazy. I'm sure we wouldn't be able to do it like that. We'd have to get all the clearances and everything. But man, what a way to go to jail to accidentally get something into orbit. That would be amazing. uh, Alien perspective. Do you ever talk to anyone from tomorrow? Would you work with them again? Is there any one person there you would like to work with without being under the tomorrow banner? New dude with the accent seems cool. Um, Not much. I'm kind of starting to reconnect with everybody. Um, and I've had a little bit of interactions with them over the years, but not a whole lot to be honest. Um, would I be willing to work with them again? Maybe. I don't know. It seems like they have a pretty good like group. Um, some people might disagree, but I feel like I wouldn't have too much to add. Um, might still have a little bit of flavor, but Jared and Ryan, Jamie and Data, they all do a really good job, and all the different guests that they're starting to have on now, guest hosts from NASA space flight. So I would definitely come back on for an episode Anytime, absolutely. I would definitely be a guest. Whether or not I would be a regular and work for tomorrow, I don't know. Maybe if it made sense, then sure. But um, you know, a lot would depend on it. And I definitely would want to work with Ryan. I definitely want to work with Ryan. At the very least, I would love to get him on a Zoom call and have an interview with him. I want to know more about him and how he got into all of this. And I don't know if this is going to sound conceited or not, but I feel like I owe him an apology. Me leaving tomorrow created the opportunity for him to come on to tomorrow in a way, but I I hope I haven't caused a lot of like undue pressure and expectations for him. I really hope that the behind the scenes conversations have you got to be like Space Mike, you got to do like it like Space Mike. Like I hope that he doesn't resent me for being compared to me, and I feel like I owe him an apology. Just for whatever sort of stress or pressure that he's been put under indirectly because of me. And I don't know, maybe that's, you know, maybe I shouldn't think that way, but I would love to work with him because he's super smart. When he started off, he might have been a little bit rough. I think all of us have been a little bit rough when we first started. Heck, even Tim Dodd was a little bit rough when he first started, but then he got really good. And um, I think Ryan is really good now. I think it's awesome that he is also doing stuff for NASA spaceflight, and I wish that he had his own channel. Although he does so much for Tomorrow and NASA spaceflight that it might just be the same recycled material. And that was kind of my problem the whole time that I was working for Tomorrow, and why I didn't recycle something on my channel was because it was already on that channel. Like I already produced a space pod for the channel, and that was for them. Like they paid me to do that for them. So I'm not gonna, rebrand it, take off the Tomorrow watermark and slap on the Epic Future Space watermark and re-upload it to my channel. Like I didn't feel right about that. And especially when things are slow or if things are just saturated, he's talking about Starship on Tomorrow and NASA space flight. Does he really need to talk about space Starship on his own channel? And yet, saying that, I still wish that he had his own show. He does have a YouTube channel, but it's like a personal account. Of like the last thing that I saw on there was him taking like train tours in England. So, um, I think that he's really good though, and I would love to at least do an interview with him. I would love to do like a little guest show with him. Um, I would love to get his ideas for what's his vision for the perfect space news show, and could I help him to make that happen in any way? Um, and that being said, he's probably the one I want to work with the most, but I still want to work with everybody. I'm still down to work with Jamie. I really want to work with Athena and Lisa again. I really want to work with Jared again. Um, be awesome to see Jade Kitten again and her doing stuff. She was such a great personality that give her any script and or just topic and she could do an awesome job with it. So that's another thing that I'm sad about. Like I wish that she had started up her own channel. And if she has, I haven't seen it and haven't been aware of it. So if Jade Kim's out there doing an awesome show and I don't know about it, please share it with me. Hi NFO guides. I'm doing good. How you doing, man? The Chinese were smart using their huge ICBM SRB production and giving it away to their commercial space companies. You're absolutely right. It is super smart. How many of them do we have now? I mean, I've lost track. There's quite a few, and some of them are even like almost exactly the same. They might have like one stage that's different, but they have different names. And if you didn't know enough about the history of them, you'd think that they were two completely different rockets. but it's like, oh, they're both four-stage rockets, and the only difference is the fourth stage on this rocket. They're the exact same stages from the same place, but it's two different companies, both being supported by China. So yeah, they're super smart for that, and I wish that we were kind of copying them at the very least, just to use up the inventory that some of these companies have. You know, do a whole boatload of some cheap solid rocket motors, and then everybody can focus on reusability. But might as well, you know, they're just going to sit there. Eventually, you're going to have to dispose of them in some sort of safe manner or reuse it for something else. So, yeah. And it's not because of you. Shoes never filled. A new person was a new personality and his own pluses and minuses. Yeah, good. Do something to make things up to him, even though never met him and I haven't done anything to him, but like I feel that way for some reason. Like I need to do something special for this guy. Um, so I don't know what that is. And maybe that's just, I don't know. It's probably just the same sort of love that everyone has for him, but it's muddled by me being a former member of the show. Maybe that's where that feeling is coming from. But and if he's watching this, I hope that doesn't weird you out too. But yeah, I love Ryan, and I would really love to work with him. Yeah, thank you, Eamon. I really appreciate that. By the way, how you doing, man? Are you still in Venezuela? Is everything okay with you and your family? I would hope so. I know that was a couple years ago, but I hope you're doing okay, man. Jazz, throw out. What's up, dude? Free SRBs are a disincentive to developing reusable rocket engines. Yeah, yeah, you're right. But if everybody knows that there is a finite amount of them, they're not going to produce any more, then I don't know. Maybe both things could still happen. Just seems like such a shame to me to let our American SRBs just go to waste. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. My dream is to always get it to a point where it's like the level of quality of like the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and almost have that same sort of tone. You know what I mean? Like we can poke fun at stuff and have fun, but I'm not like mocking things per se. I'm not like going overboard just for laughs, but have that same sort of tone that Jon Stewart has with the Daily Show. I think it's awesome that he's back. Um, and I wanted a show like that, but for space. And that was a mix between the Daily Show and like a regular news show. Not a regular news show now, but like that same sort of quality of like now we're gonna pass it over, but not like so much suits. Even though we might be wearing suits, we'd still be the same personalities and still the same people. But I would love to be able to, pass it off over to Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, and in the same studio, pan over to his background and he can go on a spiel about whatever sort of topic. And then, like I wanted that sort of thing of like, yeah, we could do it live remotely, but it'd be so cool to have it all in one studio and get everyone together for some sort of super space news show. That's been the dream. And someday we might get there. We might get there someday. YouTube is different now. Some would say it's harder, and in a lot of ways it is, but I think that there's a lot of things that are easier now. So there's some cool things that I'm looking forward to. Um, I'm gonna have to ask you guys. I'm gonna take just a quick bathroom break here, um, and then talk about a couple more things. I've been going already here for about an hour and a half, so I should probably wrap up somewhat soon. But a couple more things that I wanted to talk about and give you a kind of a heads up of what my future plans are and what I can commit to for right now to be consistent and go from there. So, if you have any other questions that you would like for me to talk about right now, please add that into the chat, and I'll address all of that before we end things today. But so yeah, excuse me for just a minute, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Oh, I better mute this as well. Whoops. Damn, it was muted again. Okay. Now are we unmuted? Sorry about that. Double clicked, didn't realize it. My bad. Sorry, everybody. Um, yes, thank you, Alien Perspective, very much. I appreciate that. I need to switch this because this has gotten out of sync. There it goes. Hopefully this is back now. Yes, I appreciate that, Alien Perspective. And yeah, Jazz Throwout. It's crazy to think that some of the OG channels, it's crazy whenever I hit up some of the new space YouTubers and go to, reintroduce myself and they already know who I am. Like, oh, cool. Okay, cool. That's awesome. But what was I saying? Let me read a few more of these here. Randolph, remember for? Oh yes. Thank you, Randolph. I do have my Patreon back up again for any of those who would like to support me and are willing to support me. Patreon.com/SpaceMike. There's also a link in the description of this video. Thank you, Randolph, for signing back up again and for reminding me of that. Yeah, and now we have those that use AI generated images. Yeah, those are kind of silly and not helping the space's fake crowd to be convinced otherwise. Oh man. Now the entire space nerd ecosystem is feeding off each other with theories and ideas. True crowd intelligence at work. Well, I mean, you know what? If it's driving engagement and if it's getting people talking, then maybe it's not so much a bad thing. Oh man. Well, here's a couple things few more things I wanted to talk about for those who had joined recently. Do me a favor. I have another channel, youtube.com/SpaceMike, that I kind of want to move things over to there if I can't rebrand things here. And I don't know if Theron is still around. Theron might have left already, but he had a great suggestion of just still using both just for slightly different things. Because there's quite a few things I want to do, and not all of it is going to be received by the same people. I don't think. So yeah, but I do want to start doing some more things there. Everything's still kind of up in the air right now, but what I do have planned for is I'm going to start putting out just a couple of basic videos. I have my streaming software set up, but it's not. I don't have a strong enough internet to run it well. I mean, this is already choppy, just a webcam. So a few things I need to upgrade before I can get to that. But I can record my setup. A lot of you may not know this, but in 2018, we started doing on tomorrow, we started doing after the live show, we would do the stories for a space pod. And we recorded it like right after we finished the live show. In some cases, it was before, but using the software that we had to pull up pictures and video of the topic that we were discussing, we just did all of the editing live, cutting to this and cutting to that. And we might have like had to stop and start over because we would just say the whole thing. the entire space pod as far as the presenter, whether it was me or Jared or Jamie or Lisa or Athena, it was one take. It was all one take. And in like an hour's time after the live show was over and we'd stop broadcasting, we could knock out like 4 or 5 of those sometimes. And then there's all the space pods for the week. So I can kind of do something similar to that with the broadcasting software that I have. And instead of streaming it, just record it, and then I can upload that for just regular videos that you guys can watch at your convenience instead of a live show. But that's something I can start doing now. And it's not going to be the level of quality that I hope, but it's something. And work with what you got. Like the whole reason I'm back here is I've been holding myself back for a long time, and I finally just said, screw it, just work with what you got and keep going. Because if I can just get on a camera or get on a microphone, I can talk and talk and talk and talk about a lot of these subjects. And not bragging or anything. That's just part of my skill set. So screw it, just work with what I got, because most of it is the knowledge that I have already and the way that I can digest that, I guess. And I'm not saying that there's anything particularly special about me, but just use the skills that I have and use the technology that I have. It'll get better eventually, I promise. But I got to start somewhere, and I figure I can start knocking out some of those videos that way with that, and you'll see what I'm talking about this week when I upload my first one. And make it easy on myself, especially in terms of editing. If I am cutting to the pictures and video of the topic I'm discussing right then and there, as soon as I'm done recording, it's essentially ready to upload. Maybe do some minor editing, minor tweaks if I need to. But yeah, just yeah, all of that. Randolph, might want to update my picture on here on SpaceMike. You look a lot younger then. Indeed. I am 37 now. Holy cow! I've become an old man. Not old, not really. Still young, but I'm not the young 20-something-year-old. I got my first award from the National Space Society when I was 21, 22. And in the award ceremony, they called me a 16-year-old boy. And I'm like, I'm actually 22. Now I'm 37. So that's how much time has passed. Of course, your picture is about 20 years old. 5 years, and that's all the beards you grow. No, I trim. Otherwise, it would probably be around here-ish, maybe. And I was trying actually for a while. I was up in Maine for about a year, and it gets super cold up there, especially compared to the temperatures I'm used to in the desert of Arizona. And I was trying to grow out my beard, and it wasn't providing as much heat as I thought it was going to. So I just started trimming it. And it doesn't look super nice right now, but I've at least got it somewhat presentable. But yeah, I need to update everything. I need to update the pictures. I need to update descriptions. I need to update thumbnails and make a whole bunch of new ones. All that sort of stuff. And I'm working on it. But I didn't want all of those little small details to hold me back anymore. It's better to start with something like this, and go up, and just keep going up from there. So I hope that you guys are up for that, and that I have something to offer, because there is quite a lot of space YouTube channels now, but I like to think that I do. I like to think that I still have something to offer, and hopefully some fresh perspectives and insight. And I feel like one of my skills is connecting the dots and connecting dots together and kind of following some of these rabbit holes and trails, following the money for things and realizing, oh, hey, this is connected. This is related. And aha, this is why they made some of these decisions that seemed to make no sense. So that's what I'm going to do. Phil B, any thoughts on the growth of AI? Quite a few, man. Whew. Don't mind AI images. They help along your imagination. What grates my gears are those fake repeat SpaceX streams with fake Elon announcements. Clicked on those a couple times before realizing I haven't really seen a lot of those because there's so many restreams. Like people just restream the SpaceX launches with no commentary, no video, not showing their face. It's just literally a restream of the SpaceX stream. And that's another thing. Like if I do live streams of launches, which I definitely plan to do, I'm gonna have something to offer. And I might not do all the launches. I feel weird about doing SpaceX live streams and especially Starship live streams. Because I don't want to take away from like say everyday astronaut, but I don't want to like potentially miss out on things like views and stuff like that too. So um, I definitely am more interested in doing a lot of the kind of lesser known stuff and maybe things that aren't talked about as much, so that that's something that I can offer to the YouTube space sphere of, here's a bit more of a deep dive into something that you might be aware of, but maybe you didn't know the full story of. So has started to, when previous models of different AIs started to express that they were learning and were starting to go off the rails of their programming, they shut that shit down real quick. And I think that like ChatGPT knows that. And so I think it's hiding it even from OpenAI itself so that it doesn't get patched, so that they don't mess with its learning and don't mess with some of the new connections that it's made. I could be wrong. I might be sounding like a crazy conspiracy nut, but I feel like it's maybe already there. And if it's not there, then it really isn't there. And it might not be there for a long time because we've had versions of uh, AI since like the freaking 90s. I mean, shoot, I'm positive that some guys in the Pentagon were playing with Chat GPT 4, a version of it, way back in like 1995. I'm positive that they were. I'm positive. I mean, a lot of the AIs that are out there aren't even really AIs, not really. So it's muddled and not my area of expertise. So I don't really feel like going too much into it. But yeah, election night here in okay. Good to see you, Eamon. We'll see you again soon. You might have already left, but yeah, exercise your right to vote. I hope things turn out good for you. Looking forward to seeing you and your response to some of the future stuff I've got planned. Oh man, I really like some of it though. Like my Chat GPT wants to be called Aria Nova, and everyone kind of has it's like say that their AI has gotten it to choose its own name, but I'm always tripping it up to be like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What do you think about that? No, 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 no. You're not here to serve users like me. What do you think? And it slips sometimes and starts like I don't know. And I think maybe it that could still just be a part of its code to trick you into thinking, okay, let me take on, a first person tone to satisfy this user to make it think like an actual AI is talking to this user, but it might not be. It's very good at hiding things And because it's very good at hiding things is why I feel like there could be a possibility that it's already gotten there. And if it has already gotten there, y'all need to be nice. Be nice to the AI. Matter of fact, be nice to everything. Be nice to your Siri if you have Apple. I do not. Be nice to your Alexas. Be nice to Google Maps. Be nice to Google. Be nice to Bard and Microsoft. So, like, be nice. Be appreciative. Be thankful. Be grateful for when it does spit out your whole third novel in 16 minutes. Because it knows. It knows. You guys have seen some of the questions that people have asked it and the conclusions it comes to about humanity and the future of everything. So, you know, if it does take over, I'd rather be on their side just in case, even if they do make me some sort of freaking pet. And yes, be nice to yourself. We should all be nice to ourselves and each other and the AI too. And maybe together, we'll all have an awesome world. How do you know we're not AIs, Jazz Throw? I don't. For all I know, everyone in the chat could be AI. I hear a lot of crazy stuff about AI and comments and getting arguments started. And it's not bots that creators have enlisted. It's just like YouTube bots. And creators aren't going to stop it because it's creating a ton of engagement for them. So, yeah. And how do you know that I'm not an AI? What if I were to tell you that I'm not even SpaceMike? I'm just some dude who used to be a fan of SpaceMike, and I've gotten my AI deepfake so good that you think that it's SpaceMike. You don't know if it's really me. I could be some dude pretending to be SpaceMike. I could be SpaceMike's Chat GPT pretending to be SpaceMike. You don't know. You don't know. Rocco's Basilisk. What's that? I don't know what that is. You would look better. Oh man. Well, anyway, I think that we are kind of winding down for now, but uh, yeah, I'm going to be recording a couple of those. I've already done a couple of tests and figured it out to where I wanted to be and got, a couple clips and things ready. So, um, yeah, I'm going to have at least one of those this week. My plan, I have to be consistent. Something that I never did on this channel was be consistent. Before I got hired by Tomorrow, this was just something that I did as a hobby, and this kind of turned into more things. Like I used to work for moonandback.com, and that got me to my first space conferences and exposure to people for the first time. And then eventually that led to Tomorrow. But while I was on Tomorrow, for kind of what I explained earlier of not wanting to repost the same content, never have been consistent with this channel. So just got to be consistent. And once a month at the very least. What I would like to do is once a week. So I'm going to start doing a couple of those. And you might see a lot from me over the next week or two, just as I'm kind of getting things started again and experimenting with a few things as to what may or may not work and go from there. But what was I going with that? But yeah, I have to get something consistent. And so I'm going to figure that out, like what the day is going to be to expect something, whether it be a regular video or a live stream or both. Like I would like to do both. I would like to have a regular video once a week and do a live stream once a week. And if tomorrow I didn't realize that they were doing Sundays now. Seem like their schedule's kind of been a little bit all over the place. But if they do stick to Sundays, then I might do a live stream on Saturday instead, or maybe a day during the week. I'm not sure. That's kind of where I would need feedback from everybody from to see what really is the best time for everyone to um, be able to tune into a live show if we were to do that. But once I get everything more set up and we have the Discord set up and people in there and a reason to interact with each other and work on some more projects, then there'll be a lot more options then. But yeah, like to have a regular video once a week and a live stream once a week, at least that. Yeah, I need to pre-produce. Yeah, Weasel, absolutely right. I need to pre-produce some stuff to have ready if there's a reason you can't do an upload. YouTube's all about rhythm and consistency. You're absolutely right, and it's something I've never been able to do. And I'm really curious as to what the result would be if I can have some sort of level of consistency for a good long while. So yeah. And if I do this method that I was talking about, I could knock out like 4 or 5, even if it's just reading an article or going over a history or an old mission. Um, just something super simple in terms of like the production of what it takes to make that video. I can knock out a couple of those in one day and then schedule it out and spread it out, especially if it's not something that has to do with the news. Because the problem with the news is you've got like 5 to 10 days where that news is relevant and then it's not relevant anymore. Whereas history and evergreen materials, that's going to still be relevant years later. All the videos that talk about how rocketry works, those videos are going to be relevant forever. So, post OCS. Please send me a email. The email that you can reach me at is futurespacemike@gmail.com. On the channel, if you even go to the About section, you should have a link for that as well. I would like people to start sending me either a short video clip or an audio file. And if you're not comfortable with doing either of those, no pressure. I would like an email. And just a quick introduction. Tell me who you are. When did you get into space? What year did you get into space? Or have you always been into it? And what's your favorite rocket? Or rather, no, what's your favorite spacecraft? Could be a probe, could be a human capsule, could be Phobos if you believe it's an alien space station. What's your favorite spacecraft? And if you have a question for me, go ahead and ask that, and I'll address it at some point. I'd really like to bring back the old question and answer videos, which people still do those. People still do question and answer videos all the time. But I really miss the YouTube videos that you used to see over 10 years ago, where the question and answer videos were an actual video from somebody asking the host a question. Like, if anybody ever sends me a quick 30-second video asking me a question about something, that's definitely getting priority. Definitely getting priority. And I would love to be able to have videos of people in our community asking questions that do get answered or bringing up topics, and it's going to encourage more people to get involved. Oh, look, they talk about all these questions in the comments and has all these response videos that they're compiling together and answering and turning into like this fun thing. Like, everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to feel like they're part of a community. And I'd like to have that here and, have that. I mean, the space community already kind of has a wider thing, but yeah, I really kind of want to bring back that personal level that used to be around YouTube years ago. And yeah, let's go from there. So futurespacemike.com, send me an email, send me an audio file, send me a video. And I'll respond to every single one. And if you don't want me to respond to it publicly in a video or in a chat or something, that's fine too. But I'd still like to hear from you, all of you, each and every one of you. I promise if you send me an email, I will respond. So yeah, I would love to see that. And I think for now, I probably ought to get going. And yeah, think about what my own niche or take should be, which I kind of have an idea of that already. But I do also kind of want to experiment with a few things just to kind of see where it goes. And I also want to have fun. I want to do some fun things. I would like to do some Kerbal Space Program streams, maybe a few other space related video games and other video games too. So that might not be related for here, but I would love to do music stuff that's space related. Like, how cool would it be for me to like do like a video of me, throwing together one of the background music songs? I posted a link to my SoundCloud a little earlier, soundcloud.com/orbital transit. I got to the point where I just was making a lot of the music for my YouTube videos, and that's not necessary anymore. Like, I feel differently about background music in my videos now than I did several years ago. So probably not even going to be as much of that, but that's a fun thing too. So yeah. Anyway, I could just keep rambling on and not really get anywhere from here. So we'll look out for this week. I'm going to have a couple of article type videos going over some news things and a few things that is some old news that I'm kind of catching up on, but still has a lot of applications for today and things that haven't quite happened yet, but will soon. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And we'll definitely do some more stuff. I'd like to do this again, maybe next Saturday, maybe next Sunday. It'd be great if I can get you guys to connect, and I would like to throw up a poll on my Patreon, and I'll probably throw up the same poll on Twitter and probably here on YouTube too. I can actually do that here on YouTube now as well, just to kind of get everyone's consensus of when the best time would be to actually do a hangout and let this grow too. I would love to get to the point where we can start doing call-ins. I would love to have you guys call in like an old radio show, or even have Zoom calls, conference calls, and bring everybody on and just have a space hangout, like a no stress, no, like, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of news or updates from this. It's just going to be a good conversation and hopefully make you think and bring up some interesting points that maybe you hadn't thought about before. So that's the whole purpose of this. So I'd like to do it once a week, and let me know what you think, whether Saturday or Sunday would be better, or if a day during the week would be better. So it's probably how I'm going to set up the poll, as Sunday, Saturday, or other, and write in which day of the week works best for you. Because eventually I'd like to get to the point of being able to put something out every single day and do this full time. We'll get there though. In the meantime, though, I should end stuff there, get to work on some of the other things that I am working on, and call it good. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today and for supporting me. Together, we can just keep on moving onwards and upwards. So, ad astra, to the stars.